Hi and welcome to another episode of the We Need a Rose podcast on Who's Vice President, Jerry Lewis? I'm your host Neil Gregory and I'm joined as always by my co-host David Long. Now David, do you have a terrible joke prepared this time or are you furiously Googling one right now?
Don't mate, don't. I've had such a shit day. I've had one of the hardest days of my life, man. It's been really bad. You have no idea.
This is the joke though, isn't it? This is the setup for the joke.
Well, I shouldn't have taken that Viagra. Pin drop.
You know what? They say there should never be dead air on a podcast, but I think it's becoming a thing here now where the audience is going to go,
Oh, I could have done that setup so much better. Oh well. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to run with it.
Is that part of the joke?
No.
Because that was actually funnier than the whole joke. Right, anyway, on this week's show, we're going to have a quick Oscars roundup. We got some major casting news for Marvel's Secret Invasion show. We got news on Ben Wheatley's next couple of projects. And for our main features today, we're going to go into full spoiler territory on two very different films, Promising Young Woman and Love and Monsters. First up, it's the news.
News.
So, with the Oscars the other weekend, we originally were going to record this podcast a couple of days before the Oscars, and then stuff happens as it does in life, and we're recording it the week after the Oscars. And I prepared all these picks on what I thought would win and what I actually thought should win. And would you believe it or not, I actually every prediction I made came true. And I didn't post it anywhere, and I didn't place any money on it. So
no one's ever going to believe you.
I know. So until I do it next year, so just, you know. But so let's start off at the top with Best Film. And everyone is expecting Nomadland to win, and it did. However, having said that, I've just started watching Nomadland, and I've got to say, for me, it's a hard watch, and I'm not really a fan so far. So, controversial opinion here. I can see from other reviewers and why it's got the attention it has, but I don't know. I was struggling. I was an hour in, and I thought, I am falling asleep watching this. I mean, I'm a big fan. Look, I'm in the right. I think it might have also been to do with end of the week and I was tired or whatever, blah blah blah. But you need to be in the right mood to watch that type of film. I mean, it's reminding me a bit of Into the Wild, but that was half an hour longer, and I love that film. It's like a Terrence Malick film or a Richard Linklater film, where you're just watching like Boyhood. You're watching a slice of life happen. But I don't know. I just didn't connect with me, man. Obviously, I'm going to have to go back to it and give it another chance and finish it.
Well, you've got another hour to go. If you've only watched the hour, you never know. That next hour could be like, boom. Because I haven't seen the film. It only came out yesterday, where we could watch it as of recording. But yeah, so. I mean, I can't say. Obviously, we could say it's easy to say that everyone was suggesting that it was going to win. And to no surprise that it did, yeah.
For me, the most impressive thing for the film that I've seen was I thought the cinematography was amazing in it.
You think Chloe Zhao was deservedly Best Director?
I mean, it's a weird one, right? Because the film uses, from what I've read on the film, bar Frances McDormand and one other actor, essentially everyone else in the film are actually real nomad people, and they got encamped with them and travelled with them to make the film. So, and they're capturing bits of real life, scripted real life. But so it's a real weird, strange mishmash for me that I don't know. It just didn't hit for me.
But is that not a good, strong directorial decision to have done that and to have actually travelled and immersed yourselves in this society instead of just creating a fake one?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't argue anything about the authenticness of the film, but I think in a film, right, if you're noticing how great the cinematography is, then the story's not engaging you, and it just didn't engage me. And again, performance-wise, this brings us on to Best Actress. Obviously, McDormand won for a third time. I mean, for me, there's no way this was better than Carey Mulligan's performance in Promising Young Woman for me. And I definitely don't think it's the strongest of McDormand's performances compared to Fargo or, for me, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is still easily her best film. So, I'm not a fan so far. I mean, but
you've still got another hour to go, like we've said. So
yeah, but you haven't even watched it yet.
You could absolutely just.
I just don't see the film going anywhere. I just don't. I see it being more of the same. Yeah. Actually, I was going to say. So, best film, I actually would have preferred to have seen Promising Young Woman or Sound of Metal win, to be honest. But okay. I did say Nomadland was going to win, and it did.
Minari.
Oh yeah, Minari. Well, Minari picked up an award. It got Best Supporting Actress. For Yu Young Jin, and I actually thought she was going to win, and she did win. And I think part of that reason was she she'd been picking up all. She won at the BAFTAs, and there had been a few more award ceremonies. It was like they say, when the Oscars, when the festival season builds, that's where you can kind of tell where the Oscar might go to. Although there's a funny story that a funny story in some ways that she everyone reported it as she was cracking on Brad Pitt, and like, oh, Mr. Pitt, oh, why haven't I seen you? And everyone was like, oh, look, the old Korean grand lady, she loves Brad Pitt like everyone else, and that's the way it was reported, which is complete bullshit. She was actually having a crack at him because he was a producer on the film, and she never met him. He never turned up to the set.
Okay.
And it was filmed in America, obviously, as well. And apparently, when she came over to the Oscars, again, this is from just what I've read online, so I don't know whether this is 100% true. But apparently, she had to sort out her own Airbnb. She had to pay to upgrade her flights. If you're nominated for an Oscar, at least the film company can do is pay for a first class flight.
Yeah, that is not the Hollywood treatment, is it?
That is not the Hollywood treatment, exactly. So I think they kind of misinterpreted their comments on the night, but it was very funny. Just like say, I love the way it was reported. Where they're going, oh yeah, this old lady, oh look, she loves Brad Pitt like everyone else, and she was actually giving him shit at the Oscars on stage in front of everyone, but in a way that no one realised she was really doing it at the time. So yeah. Give her the award just for that, man.
Yeah, fair. Going back to Nomadland, we should review that properly on the next episode.
Oh no, why?
Make a promise.
Why?
Because that way you've got to finish it, and
then you've got to watch it.
I'll have watched it. Yeah, because it's like I said, it only came out yesterday. We haven't had the time, and we could review it properly, and that could be our main feature for the next step.
I am not committing to that in a minute. I don't know if there's enough time in my life to watch it in the next thing.
1 hour left.
I know,
Did you really dislike it that much?
It's not dislike, right? It just I was so bored.
You just didn't
like
it.
Bored.
Well, okay, but
didn't
you go into it in the wrong headspace.
I have liked films like that, like I mentioned, like Into the Wild and any number of Linklater films or Terrence Malick films, but I don't know. I couldn't get into the film, man. I just couldn't get into it. So I think when I do watch it, I won't watch just the last hour. I'll watch it again from scratch. I might try and fit it in my early morning rowing sessions this week. Over 2 days, that might be the way to do it. Right. So next up, let's save Best Actor for last, like the Oscars did.
Okay.
So Best Supporting Actor.
That was an odd choice as well.
Yeah, that was odd, and we'll mention that as well.
Right.
Best Supporting Actor went to Daniel Kaluuya, and everyone thought he was going to win. I predicted he was going to win, and he did win. Although, do you know what? Having seen Judas and the Black Messiah, I generally thought Lakeith Stanfield was probably the better performance of the two.
Yeah,
I mean, arguably, and as we said before, neither actor should have been nominated in Best Supporting Actor because they're both lead performances.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
So, but I think Kaluuya gave one of the best speeches of the night as well and embarrassed his mum publicly at the Oscars, so that was all good. For Best Director, as we said, Chloe Zhao did win, but again, I think Promising Young Woman should have won for Emerald Fennell. And actually, my other prediction was Promising Young Woman was also up for Best Original Screenplay, and I figured if it won that early on, it wouldn't get any of the big awards later in the evening, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, to be honest, this Oscars kind of felt like just like, oh, let's give everyone that's up for something an award in some category. There wasn't like one standout winner. Like Nomadland, you would say is a standout winner because it won Best Picture and Best Director. It won 2 of the big 3.
And I'm glad it was shared around because the thing this year was, I mean, the Oscars usually reward the smaller, more indie films, don't they? Or the art house things. It isn't blockbusters and genre pieces and films that take the most money at the box office, unless you're James Cameron or Peter Jackson, rarely get nominated. Genre films just don't get done. And with there being essentially no blockbusters in the last year, what it meant was the smaller films got a lot more eyes on them this year. And, there were some great films, but I think almost any of these films that were nominated and won this year, in a regular year, would have not struggled, but they wouldn't have had the same level of attention on them, would they? For example, they reckon one of the big films that would have been competing at this year's Oscars, if it had come out, was Spielberg's new version of... Come on, David, you know your musicals?
Oh, West Side Story, sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry, yeah.
No, you got it right. That's fine. You don't have to apologise for
the new trailer
of
that came out the other day, didn't it? I watched it and I was kind of like, oh, that showed nothing.
But they reckon
West Side Story, everyone knows. So sorry, go on.
Exactly. So they reckon that was going to be up for a bunch of awards if it had been out this for this season. Right. But last of all, and this is the one I knew it wasn't going to win, and I knew what was going to win was Best Special Effects. And I mean, again, we didn't have really many massive blockbuster style films out this year. And I can't even remember all the nominations. I remember The Midnight Sky, the Actually, do you know, that film's actually almost as boring as Nomadland, because I've still not finished it in 3 attempts. It's George Clooney on a frozen ice planet, which is Earth, with a small girl, and everyone's miserable and dying. So, yeah, fun. So I haven't finished that. And it didn't, I mean, it looked okay, but, you know, it didn't look anything past an episode of Snowpiercer. But yeah, anyway. But obviously Tenet won, didn't it? And here's my argument with Tenet, right? We should do Tenet in one episode,
You've got a bit of a...
Well, no, with Tenet, I'm willing to go back and watch it again. But when I saw it in the cinema, I was massively disappointed and just thought, oh, it's just a Christopher Nolan greatest hits compilation.
You've got to be in your bonnet about that, mate. You really have.
No, I haven't. If I've got to be in my bonnet and if I hate a film, I will not go back to it. Like, Nomadland is clearly a good film. It just wasn't for me, and I need to have another look at it
I think
to give a proper opinion.
Winning that award is what you've got to be in the bonnet about.
Well, yeah, okay, and because Tenet had a budget of 200 million, and one of the other nominees, which should have won, which we're going to be talking about in massive depth later, Love and Monsters, cost 30 million. And arguably, the effects connected to budget, Love and Monsters should have won.
Right, so key word there, like connected to budget. Yeah. But what had the best effects?
Well, I'm going to go with Love and Monsters. And I'll tell you the reason why. It can't just be a cold, clinical, special effects in this film were amazing. Well, that's how they obviously did do it. Because they was like, the special effects in this film are great, even though the film's not great. Whereas Love and Monsters was a great film and had great special effects. So if you've got a film that looks amazing, but it's completely soulless, and you don't care what's happening, but the effects are really good, should it win over a film that has really good effects, and you actually like the characters and love the film?
Well, should that come into it at all? Should it just be purely based on...
No, I mean, in my opinion...
purely based on
the effects? And it clearly is, right? But it's a little film that could, right? It was like a... I understand.
100%. I understand. It's like the whole underdog thing. You're always rooting for the underdog to win against, like, you know, David vs Goliath in terms of effects, visual effects.
I mean, I was happy enough that it just got nominated, right? For a film that small, that's a massive win, right? So, have you got any other thoughts there on the Oscars there, David?
Well, my overall thoughts on the Oscars are... Does anybody,
or in general?
So this is like a look at the Oscars over the last like 20 years, yeah? Does the Oscars still have the same weight that it did 20 years ago?
Define weight.
Like the same impact on what people will watch, what people want to watch. Does it still have that?
It never has
impact on looking at the viewing figures for the Oscars over the last 20 years. So in the year 2000, it had 46.3 million viewers. And
You're
then
going to bore me with stats,
steadily went. So 2014 was the last time it hit near that figures with 43 million. Mm-hmm. Do you guess how many 2021 has had? According to this website, less. Which is statista.com. Well, guess. Have a guess. Just have a guess. So 43 million 14, in 2014.
14 million.
9.
Oh, so it wasn't too far away.
You weren't too far away, but from 43 million to 9...
Okay, but this year's one, you can't really compare. Why do people watch the Oscars? Two reasons,
It's been on a slow decline from then, though. It's gone 36, 26, 23, and then 9.
You can argue that TV's not even watching the same way anymore, right?
Exactly. So that's what I'm on about. That's what I mean by, does it have the same weight? Does it have the same... impact
only if you base the value of the Oscars on viewing figures, which generally everyone doesn't, right? The Oscars essentially started for Hollywood to slap each other on the backs and go, aren't we great? Here you go, here's this gold statue. And it's always been that. And arguably over the years, and this is what I think the main reason for the Oscars are, every time the Oscars come out, right, 9 out of 10 of the Oscar films, the average film goer in the street goes, never heard of that film.
Yeah, 100%.
That looks boring.
Yeah.
So, what are the Oscars? The Oscars are essentially just a way for them to go, right, what art house films, what smaller films do we want to push and give a bunch of awards to? And again, it's all political, right? It's got to be all political. Okay, that studio paid us this much money or donated to this cause or that. So that's why, I mean, it's, you look at the Golden Globes, that's the most corrupt piece of shit organisation going, if I'm honest. We talked about that a little while back.
Yeah, we did.
The Oscars are a little bit more... Was it this year was the first year we had our second... How many years are the Oscars? 93 years, is it? And this was only the second time we had a female Best Director winner. Obviously, we can argue with that it's because women weren't even considered for the roles before.
The
and directors of colour is that now, which again, thankfully, it is all changing in that respect. So, But no, the Oscars have always been a way to promote other films. You know, you bung a couple of Oscars on a film and go.
Maybe it's my own how I'm seeing it, because when I was growing up, I always viewed the Oscars as if you won Best Picture or if you won, that was the best film that year, hands down. Like that was the film you've got to see every year. When I was growing up, when I was like 10 to 20, that's how I viewed everything. But now I don't see the Oscars that way anymore. I don't see the Oscars as the film. This is the film you have to see. Like this is, it's not like that anymore. And that's, I don't know. It just sort of, it's lost its shine a little bit for me.
I tell you what I missed about it, right? I was thinking about it, and what I really miss is I used to love watching it when you'd have like the old school comedian or, you know, talk show host presenter, and they'd be CGI'd into all the nominated films, and they'd be like a proper nice little, and that was funny, you know, and they'd mock themselves.
Well, like the little sketches that were going on.
Billy Crystal's Oscar ones were brilliant. You can argue that they've got too political in that.
I mean, that's the whole different. That's looking at it differently entirely to what I'm seeing.
I think I think the two things are connected. I think a lot of the general public, because you look at what a lot of the Oscars coverage is, right? And it's, what are you wearing? All this crap. It's all to do with what people are wearing and the glamour and the glitz of the ceremony, right? So that is what they try and entice people to watch it
it's for. It's like for 4 hours before the actual show starts.
And that is what the average person will watch the Oscars for. The average person who's not a big film fan. But they'll watch it because of that reason. And they probably won't, like you say, and not to be like snobbish, but again, that type of person, if you're tuning in generally to watch what people are wearing, you're probably not fussed about a South Korean foreign language film set in Arkansas. You know, it's just...
Yeah. So, I mean, you could go even further down the rabbit hole and ask the question, do actors and actresses have the same pull on what people will watch that they did beforehand? Like the franchise act...
Well, yeah, we could get into the whole thing of, is there a movie star? Well, there are movie stars, but movie stars...
Like, you know, Tom
Cruise.
Like Tom Cruise's next film,
Jennifer
Tom
Lawrence.
Hanks' next film, something like that. You know, like, I'm going to watch that film just because Tom Hanks is in it.
Yeah, but those films make money. They don't necessarily... Well, those actors... I mean, Tom Cruise...
Are those style of actors dying out, though? I mean, who's the next actor that you're going to be like, I'm going to watch this film because he's in it? Like Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm going to watch that because Leonardo DiCaprio is in it.
I don't know. I think there's quite a few actors around. Off the top of my head, because I've literally just thought the question, I can't really think of any. But yeah, no, there's definitely like this. You know, for me, there's like writers or directors. That director's doing that film. I've got to see what the film is next. Don't know anything about it, but
so are directors having more pull on you now than actors would?
I think they always have.
Or in the general public.
That's down to me. Oh, general public is going to be down to the actors and the trailer, right? How many times you see an amazing trailer and go, that film looks awesome, and yet we know enough about the films now to go, no, that's going to be totally shit. But if you've made a good trailer, you at least entice the average viewer in. He's like, oh yeah, I'll pay my $10 to go and see that. $15, $20, I don't know how much a film costs in America. And I have a Cineworld card, so, you know, I don't even pay for films in that regular way.
Well, anyway, we've gone down a right
We have gone way too much on the Oscars.
Well, let's go back to the Oscars anyway.
Let's finish up where they should have finished up, which is why did they change the order of the awards so that Best Actor was the last award and not Best Film. And on top of that, it also, I was listening to another podcast about the Oscars, and they mentioned it does create a gender imbalance. So, what, are you saying Best Actor is better than Best Actress?
Yeah, so, I actually always thought Best Actress went after. Like in the previous years, it was always Best Actor first and then Best Actress.
I can't remember. I think they generally jimmy up the order, but it's generally the last two. I know it's usually Best Actor and Best Actress are in that block, and then the last two ones are always Best Director and then Best Film, because it's usually the same people a lot of the times.
I think leaving Best Actor for last probably does create a gender imbalance. Because you always leave the best award to last, right? That's why Best Picture is always last. Because it was an odd decision. Why was that decision made? Do you know?
Well, the rumour is that everyone was expecting Chadwick Boseman to win for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and obviously Anthony Hopkins didn't even make it to the BAFTAs where he won, and he definitely didn't think he was going to win at the Oscars.
Right, but that's a decision by the Oscars to leave that award to last. So why would they leave that award to last if everyone thought Chadwick... That doesn't make sense. If everyone thought Chadwick Boseman was going to win it and they knew Anthony Hopkins won it, then why
no, they didn't know who was going to win it, though, did they? They were hoping. They was trying to create...
What, the Oscars, the people that organise the event?
Yeah. They don't know the winners until like obviously at the thing, right? That's the whole point. Only like I'm guessing, yeah, you know, a few select people in the academy know it. It's not like the people doing a TV show know who's doing it, and so they were hoping that it'd be a nice feel-good moment
the
for
idea. Right?
yeah,
okay.
for Chadwick Boseman to win it. But I mean, I can argue
Well, that fell flat on their face, didn't it?
Yeah, and and unfortunately, you had Joaquin Phoenix presenting that and doing his least charismatic turn ever on stage, going, "Yeah, I don't." He mumbled something about, "Yeah, I don't really know how you can like give awards for acting because I don't really know how you quantify it." But I won one, and these people should win one, or something like that. And then afterwards, because
that is a bit of a weird thing to say.
That's not verbatim. It was just typical mumbling Phoenix there. Yeah, what happened at the end was obviously there was no one there to collect it, so Phoenix was just like, "Oh no, I will accept this on his behalf for the Academy," and then the show just ended, and he's like, "Okay." I mean, I didn't think it was that bad at the time. You know, I liked that he was trying to change it up a little bit, and Steven Soderbergh produced it. I mean, some stuff worked, some stuff didn't work. But one weird thing I noticed was they had a really weird music choice, and it was way too jaunty and upbeat on the In Memoriam section. And I was like, oh, and also the time of the people's slides on screen was so far. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have died in the last year, but there was so many ones. And apparently, if you weren't that famous, you got literally 1 second. Because I started counting it out and tapping it to the beat of the music. I was like, wow, you literally get 1 second on screen.
That moment in the Oscars is always like quite a really so you're seeing all the actors and you're like, oh my god, yeah, I forgot he died, or I forgot she died.
Yeah, but it's not just the actors. I think again, it's the Academy,
composers,
right?
So, everyone.
Yeah, you know, you get like, you know, I don't know, second assistant director, you get costume designer, you get best, you know, gaffer, you know, get best on-set electrician, all that kind of stuff. And these are the people who literally, if you're outside of their industry, no one would know about. So it is good, and they should keep these people in, and they should give them more than 1 fucking second for a life's work. But then again, then you can argue though that people find the TV show boring and blah 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 blah. So ending on blah 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 blah, I think that'll finish up our.
Well, did we even talk about who won Best Actor? Like, properly?
Oh, no, not really. Anthony Hopkins. Yeah,
Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, yeah, so probably should mention that briefly. Well, and didn't I predict this a few weeks back on one of the early podcasts? I didn't predict that Hopkins was going to win, but I said it's a very Oscar-style awards performance. You know, it's about a man battling dementia, and if you have to beat a disease or an ism in a film, in acting categories, you're generally on to a winner a lot of the times. You're right, I don't think Hopkins should have won. I also don't think Chadwick Boseman should have won. I think there was quite a lot of clamour for him to win because, you know, obviously he's no longer with us. But, I mean, from all the films I've seen, I think the Oscar should have gone to Riz Ahmed.
Yeah, we can't even watch The Father at the moment either, can we?
No, exactly.
Yeah, which is like, well, maybe once we've seen it, we'll be like, okay, yeah, wow, yeah, no, he deserved to win that.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems we have with the Oscars this year, is that most of the films weren't out. Same for the BAFTAs. Like you hadn't seen the films.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you thought it was like almost an advertisement before, remember?
Yeah.
You were saying you felt like it was an advertisement. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, because almost all these films that have won the big awards are getting re-released into cinemas when you can actually get into cinemas. So they're hoping that will drive people to go and see them because... but again, this comes back to what we said about cinemas.
Yeah, well, they're all being pushed on certain streaming services, like Promising Young Women's, like Now TV.
Everywhere on Sky.
Sky on Now TV's like biggest thing at the moment,
Yeah, Disney Plus, Plushing Nomadland, Sound of Metal's Amazon's big one. So,
they've all sort of separated into their own different...
So I think now we've rounded up the Oscars, have we? Are we done?
Yeah, we're done.
That went almost a quarter of the length of the Oscars.
Okay.
Olivia Colman and Emilia Clarke are joining Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and Kingsley Ben-Adir in Marvel's Secret Invasion TV series. Now, why should you be excited about Secret Invasion, David?
I don't know, Neil. Why should I be excited?
Well, that's okay. It was a rhetorical question because I was going to tell you anyway. So, firstly, I'm going to have to give you a Captain Marvel spoiler here, David, even though you still haven't seen it, because I can't talk about this.
I don't want that going out into the world.
It's already been in the world for a couple of years. So we've actually got some spoilers for the end of Captain Marvel and the end of WandaVision coming up. So, cue the spoiler jingle.
Warning, people. Spoilers ahead.
So, right, there's a twist in Captain Marvel that the Skrulls in the comic books are actually supposed to be the bad guys. So when we see the Skrulls played by Ben Mendelsohn as Talos in Captain Marvel, we're going, oh, okay, he's the villain. Then it finds out, actually, no, the Skrulls are actually intergalactic refugees, and they were actually not the main villains. in the show. Ended up being the Kree again. In the comic line, essentially what happens is you find that many superheroes have been replaced by Skrulls, and they fight a lot. I went on Wikipedia to do my research, and I just got lost in, like, there was so much bad story, man.
Wikipedia's not the best place as well because of just...
Now, the setup for Secret Invasion seems like it's already well underway, because in the end of Spider-Man Far From Home's post-credit scene, it's revealed the Nick Fury and the Maria Hill that we saw in the film were actually the Skrulls, Talos and Sorin. And then right at the very end, we see that Nick Fury, real Nick Fury, probably like 99% Nick Fury, is on a he's on a Skrull spaceship somewhere. And again, at the end of WandaVision, Monica Rambeau is summoned to meet by a sword agent who reveals herself to be a Skrull and says, "Oh yeah, an old friend of your mother wants to see you." So I mean, this has clearly got to be Nick Fury if she's going to be in a TV show, or it's Captain Marvel if she's going to be in Captain Marvel 2, or it could be one or both. We don't know. But I mean, my money's probably on Nick Fury, right?
Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
So I've read some of the Secret Invasion series, and there has to be some major changes just due to the sheer amount of characters that are involved in the series. I think Marvel do pretty much have all their licenses back now, but there's so many characters, and it's just massive group of characters fighting here, massive group of characters fighting here. They're a Skrull, kill them. Were they a Skrull? Not sure. So that's generally how it seems to go. I mean, yeah. I couldn't even figure out what the ending of it was because there was so much deep lore. One thing I honestly think the best way they can go with the show is if you take the idea that any superhero or indeed anyone can be a Skrull agent, then do you know what show they're going to make? We're going to get the Marvel version of Battlestar Galactica, aren't we, David?
Yeah, I mean, should we get back to the actual news part of it, which was the casting of So Olivia
Oscar
Colman,
winner.
Olivia Colman, yes, winner, awesome.
Yeah.
Emilia Clarke.
Mm-hmm. Mother of Dragons.
That's okay. I mean, has she done anything? She's done
lots.
Would it be unfair to label her a franchise killer?
What? No, they did make one more Terminator film after a terrible one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But okay.
What else has she been in that she was terrible? I mean, there's a fair
Star
lot.
Wars, the solo Star Wars. She was terrible in that. She was terrible in Game of Thrones. When now you look at Game of Thrones through a lens of, oh, that ended shitly. Now everyone freaking looks at it through a negative lens. Even the amazing series like seasons early on. Her performance kind of changed after about season 4, 5. And then it became very like one-dimensional.
I don't think you can blame her for that. I think if they knew that the end point is what the end point has to be, and they didn't, and again around season 5 is where they didn't have any more original material to base it on, so they just had to fill in the gaps themselves. And as I said, that's the thing that everyone moans about with Game of Thrones is that the last couple of seasons the pace just picks up stupidly. So of course you haven't got that time for that character. No, I think she was good in Game of Thrones, but anything else
she was. I loved Game of Thrones, man. I loved it. Aside from the last season, it was my favourite TV show ever.
No, I've got a fan. I was a fan of the whole thing. I don't get the.
But when you start looking at it from a really negative.
But you're trying to be negative then. So
I know. Yeah, well, I am. That's it. But
I
just feel like everything she's been in since post Thrones has not been the best.
It's been dog shit. No, she's been very bad in a lot of things since.
She's one of them where I feel saying she'll be good in rom-coms, I think is wasting her. I think she just hasn't been given a performance
so that's not
her
fault then, is it? But now you changed your mind though.
Well, it's because you know what it is? It's because I want her to be good. And I don't want her to be this, like, you know, she's got into Terminator and it was just awful. She's got into Solo and it's just awful.
Yeah, but they're the two films you keep harping on about. But they're not bad just because of her. They're just bad films in general. So I don't think it's a bit unfair. Yeah, I mean, I think she's got a little bit of, like, the female Orlando Bloom syndrome, right? So Orlando Bloom, he can play Legolas and he can play the guy in, I can't even remember his character's name, in Pirates of the Caribbean. And everything else, that's it. Well, how do you remember that, man?
I like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, so did everyone, the first one.
He's saying she's got a bit of a, like, Keira Knightley sort of, like, where she's only...
Yeah, but Keira Knightley wasn't actually terrible when she started, and then she's become a really good actress over the years. Because she took those type of films after the Pirates and she stayed away from franchises and went into much more sort of indie films. And
yeah, so you're just sort of... She's just becoming a typecast, and she's just always going to get cast in that same role. Like, oh, there's a period drama coming up.
But she hasn't been in period drama. But,
yeah, I know, but that's
Game
what I'm
of
saying.
Thrones.
Like, you think, but would Amelia Clark want to go down that route of just being typecast into everything that she's ever done?
Depends how the money's going, I suppose. Depends how good the Game of Thrones money was. I mean, if you're an actor, right, you want to grow and do different things and do different performances. I'm assuming you don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again unless you're just in it for the paycheck. So I'm assuming she's fairly well off from Thrones and she probably wants to stretch herself. But, I mean, this is what you see, right? How many roles do you think she's probably been offered where it is, oh, so it's a medieval show or there's magic in it and she's like, nah, fuck off, and I don't want to do it. Give her time.
Well, anyway, Olivia Colman, very happy with. Amelia Clark, the jury's out. And I want her to be good, but we'll
I mean,
see.
come on, don't forget, though, you've got Samuel L. Jackson, Kingsley Ben-Adir, and Penn Mendelsohn in it, who are also all amazing actors. Also, one little bit on that, the show is being showrun by Kyle Bradstreet, whose most notable credits to this point are a show called Berlin Station, that I have not seen, which is apparently about a spy show set in Germany. And he's done some episodes of Mr. Robot. So, yeah, be interesting. I think with Samuel L. Jackson and Olivia Colman headline, I wonder what, this kind of comes back to what our whole thing on a kind of the Marvel TV universe in a minute. WandaVision, uniformly excellent. You said it started bad and got excellent. We're generally in agreement that it ended brilliantly, though. We're pretty much all in agreement that Falcon and the Winter Soldier was disappointing with a great message. It got to where it needed to get to, but it just was really clunky along the way. We're expecting great things from Loki. I'm assuming that after Loki, there's going to be the next show probably could be a downer again. But then before we get Secret Invasion, again, I don't even know the order. I know they're making the Hawkeye show right now. I know Miss Marvel's is in production.
There's loads.
I know
Isn't there? She-Hulk's one, yeah.
She-Hulk,
there's
yeah.
Loads.
So I mean, we're going to be at the stage, right, where Marvel are going to be releasing a show on Disney Plus every month, I reckon, and then you'll be getting to the stage where it's every week. Because they want to copy Netflix, right? So that's what they're going to do. So I think that's enough on the Marvel universe for the time being. And next up is director Ben Wheatley is directing The Meg 2, and he also wants to direct another film adaptation of Doom. Now, first of all, my first thought was, why the fuck is Ben Wheatley directing The Meg 2? I mean, have you seen The Meg, David?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Again, I like to call it Jason Statham Shark Puncher. He doesn't actually punch a shark at any point.
You know what? The Meg it just does what it does. It's fun. It's enjoyable. Like, you can't really, what you're gonna get
set
with
in
it.
China? Why is it set in China?
Why not?
Did you not notice that in the big beach scene at the end? It was all like set in China. I was like, that's weird. Oh yeah, because it's funded completely by Chinese money. I didn't know it did that well to get a sequel. Oh, having said that though, I remember now. The Meg is a book by an author called Steve Alton, and I actually read it years and years ago. And then he's kept writing books in that series. So the next one is called The Trench. But can you guess what happens, David? So the first one is a big prehistoric shark. What do you reckon happens in the next book?
Tell me. Is it a prehistoric...
It's an even bigger prehistoric shark.
Oh, okay. I probably could have got that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It depends how long we had left on the podcast. And then the next book, basically the sharks get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it literally has gone the full Jaws thing where each sequel gets worse and worse and worse from what I've gathered. I think this is kind of going to be a thing like where Ben Wheatley, he's done some amazing films like Kill List, Sightseers. His adaptation of Rebecca was pretty good. I mean, to take on Hitchcock and not be completely vilified, then you've done a good job as well. He's got a new film called In the Earth coming out soon, which I can't wait to see. Looks like some proper scary folk horror shit going on in there.
Yeah, that does look good.
But I think Wheatley's one of his directors. I think perhaps mentioning in an interview here that he wants to do Doom 2. Doom. I reckon that I can't wait to see what he could do with the project. I mean, we did have the 2005 film with The Rock and Karl Urban before they were really good in everything. Because now you put Karl Urban in a film and he's brilliant. You put The Rock in a film now and he's brilliant. Oh, and also don't forget it completely wasted Rosamund Pike, who you put in a film now and she's brilliant. So I think they'd all quite be happy to forget the cinematic atrocity that was Doom. And also don't forget Doom Annihilation, because apparently I did. That came out in 2019.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing apparently, and it's out there, but I am not going to waste my time with it. In the interview about where he was saying about this, he overtly stated that he has nothing to do with the script, and he's just there directing it. And yet, a lot of his best work, he writes and directs. So I think it kind of reinforces that this is literally a job for hire he's taking. When I think it proves that if he can make a blockbuster and money with the studios, then the studio might just give him a bigger budget to make his Doom movie. What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, it's a decent
No, you're supposed
theory.
to say yes, David.
It's a decent thing. Yeah, yes, Neil. Yes.
Brilliant. Okay,
Yes.
right, now let's move on.
Maybe he just wants a bit of money, like just for no, I don't know. He's got an extension to build or something.
And I think that there's our clip for the trailer for this one. Right, and as we've gone on way too long about the Oscars, we're going to skip our what we've been watching this week section, and we're going to move straight on to our 2 films of the week, where we're going to get into heavy spoilers. And first up is Emerald Fennell's now Oscar-winning and BAFTA-winning Promising Young Woman, starring Carey Mulligan. So here's your spoiler warning.
Spoilers? Where we're going, there are nothing but spoilers.
I mean, that is a gut punch at the end of the film right there. So, David, what are your thoughts on Promising Young Woman?
I think Promising Young Woman is one of those films that's going to hopefully break down a lot of barriers in society. It's one of those films that was both educational and important to a lot of to a lot of women out there. Aside from just being a good film, the message that brought with it is what's really important there, because it was a film that made me think about a lot of moments in my past, not where I've taken someone home drunk and slept with them, because I've never done that. I'm not like, but not necessarily that. It's when you've been in groups of people who have done that, because I think every woman, when they go out for a night out, maybe not at the moment because you can't, but in the future and before, every woman has probably been sexually assaulted, or someone said something to them which has been wrong. And I think every man has been in a group of people where that's happened, or they've done that themselves. And I think if they say, I think if you're just plain lying if you say you haven't, because I think every man's probably been in those scenarios where it's happened. I know I have in the past, where I've been in clubs, and I've been with people when they've either grabbed women or tried to dance with them and they've not wanted it. There's loads of those things which have sort of just been brushed under. We're drunk. Oh, that's what happens in nightclubs. Oh, that's women dressed like that should expect it. And it's all those sort of that's that sort of mentality, which is a film like this is attacking, and will hopefully people will see this and will think on their actions, but not just going forward, like tell the kids, so like women of the next generation don't have to go through the same as what everybody else has, where these sort of college experience, it happened at uni, so it doesn't matter. I was drunk, I was young, I didn't know any better. That's all bollocks. So I think the message that this film sends is almost better than the film itself. The message is bigger than the film itself, and it could have gone even further with it in a lot of respects, because it could have gone down just the sexual assault that happens on a regular basis in clubs, because this went very much down I'm a nice guy because I'm taking a drunk girl home and I'm going to sleep with them because she's drunk, and when they find out that she's not drunk, they're like, oh my god, you're not drunk? It all gets a bit. It's like she's attacking them, telling them that they're a rapist. It could have also gone even further and shown just general catcalling and sexual assault that happens on a daily basis. It's difficult for us as men to even really discuss it, because we don't understand it. Because
we've never been in that position, yeah.
We've never been in that position. If anything, we've been in the position where we've been the ones that have done these things, maybe probably in our past. And I like I said, I reckon every man who says they haven't been in a group that this has happened is lying. And I think hopefully going forward, if it happens, people will call it out and it will stop. I mean, yourself, Neil, have you been in a situation?
I said, it does remind me, I had a situation in one of my old jobs when I worked on cruise ships, and there was a guy I worked with that was a complete and utter piece of shit. And this is the type of guy that, you almost could have pulled him from this film. He was like your typical sort of worst movie version of an American frat guy you can imagine. When I met this guy, his opening line when I met the guy, he was like, I was like, hey mate, how you doing? He's like, my name's name redacted for legal purposes. I'm here to party and hook up with chicks. And I took one look at the guy. I was like, okay mate, well it's going to be a long 6 months for you, isn't it? And he just looked at me like, didn't get the joke and was like, what do you mean, man? Chicks dig me. I got my ways. And I was like, oh no, he's a dick. And yeah, this film literally made me think of one of like the instances I had to deal with this guy. What this guy did, he couldn't drink. There's a very heavy drinking culture on cruise ships when I was there. And, we'd all be there in the bar at 6 o'clock. This guy would go there and just get obliterated. And he'd be passed out drunk somewhere. The rest of us would carry on throughout the evening, We'd eat and we'd keep coming and going and back and that. And what would happen is when you get to like about 1:30, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, when the bar's starting to die down, this fucker would turn up again, having slept for most of the night. And he'd be that guy that would come in the bar and look for the drunkest girl there. And try and oh, yeah, I'll make sure you get home safely. And he was that guy. And one night I ran into him and I knew the girl he was walking back with. And I just said, oh, where are you going? Name redacted for legal purposes. And because, she was almost unconscious on his shoulder. And he just had this grinning look on his face. And he's like, oh, I'm just heading for a cabin party, man. And I said, well, does she know about the party? And he just kept grinning like an idiot. So I just stepped in and I blocked his way. And then, because I knew the girl and her cabin was just around the corner. So I just stopped in the way and she just kept walking. So, the fact that the second you let go of her, she kept walking right there. She just walked through her cabin. I just stood there. And he went to walk after her. And I remember standing in his way and he goes, oh, and this makes me angry thinking about this now, what he said. He's like, oh, why you got to cock block me, man? I said, mate, go to bed. And that's how the situation got left. Now, looking back on that now, I should have reported the fucker. But the problem is, back then, if the girl was in that situation, she didn't even remember any of this. And, it's not saying the guy would have done anything, but that's the type of situation where this stuff could happen from. For me, it was the fact that this girl looked, completely almost unconscious, shit-faced drunk, and the fact that I knew he was pretty much sober. That's what made me step in and say something. And like you say, this film's power is it made me go back and think to that situation. And just like you say, talking about it now, I'm getting angry thinking about it now. I mean, my initial reaction now, I'd punch the guy in the face if he said something like that. Which, again, isn't the correct way of dealing with things. I would have lost my job for doing that. And the problem we would have had at the time, if I had said anything, is that the girl probably didn't even remember it. So if she's not going to make a complaint about it, then that means this type of behaviour has become normalised, which it was. And like you said, it's not okay, but it's only kind of looking at it through films like this that get you talking about it and saying, no, that behaviour isn't okay, we should have done more, we should have done this. Then that's when I think we can actually start looking at making a bit of a change in society. Well, we got heavy on that one there, didn't we?
Trying to think where we could go from it.
Well, originally the ending was going to be even darker, with Cass's murder going unpunished. She was going to be murdered, and her friend Al and his friends would dispose of her body, and there was no revenge. And apparently, director Emerald Fennell did say that was the ending she wanted, but the film's financiers just balked at the dark ending and wanted some kind of happier resolution. I mean, I don't think you can still call it a happier resolution. But I think Fennell's point was that this behaviour does go on and it does go unpunished, and by not giving the audience a satisfying ending, it makes it more realistic and hit harder. And I think it's to her credit that the post-murder text revenge that results in Al's arrest, it doesn't detract from the power of the film, because we're all still so shocked from Cass's demise in the previous scene. I mean, the heroine of the film isn't supposed to die in this type of film, but by pushing the bleakness and sheer indifference to this type of story, it really makes Promising Young Women an original and much more realistic film. And I think she plays with their expectations, because a lot of people have dismissed it on a purely superficial level. Oh, it's too bright and colourful. Oh, but that's the trick. That's how she lures... Well, that's how the character lures men in, and that's how the filmmaker lures us into the film of the story. Because it's shot in some ways in those bright colours, and it's shot, other bits, it looks like a rom-com, doesn't it? It looks like a sitcom. And
yeah, like the beginning where all the men are sort of just thrusting, on the dance floor, to themselves. That almost started. I went into it and I was like, what? Oh, is this film completely different to what I expected?
Is it a comedy?
With that sort of beginning where it was the slow motion, all the thrusting and the dancing, where it was just really bright. It wasn't dark and dingy or anything. And that started off quite like a rom-com.
But I mean, you can bring that to the casting, right? The casting in the film of the so-called nice guys is a masterstroke. Look at the guys who you've got playing all the shitbags in the film. These are guys who play the good guys on sitcoms and in teen dramas. You got Adam Brody from the OC. You got Max Greenfield from New Girl. You got Chris Lau from Veronica Mars and Private Practice. these actors were deliberately chosen because of their public image. And it works brilliantly when it's subverted here. And like you say, you get that actor who looks like that, who you have that association with sitcom, and what his character's like from that, and you film it in that way with the bright colours. That's what makes what happens in their behaviour all the more shocking, because it doesn't do the typical thing on it. This film isn't really what you think it is in a lot of ways. I mean, from that awesome first poster that came out with her character sprawled on a massive mouth and the lips. And, I mean, I think initially when I saw this, I thought this was going to be like a bloody revenge thriller, where she would physically attack these guys and go after them. But no, she goes after them mentally and emotionally and directly challenges their behaviour. And that is what needs to be done more.
There's a proper danger in what she's doing. I thought if she was going to get attacked and raped at another point doing what she was doing, you know, she was going to bring the wrong person home, or she was going to go home with the wrong person, not the nice guy, but the. And that's where it was going to happen. That was going to happen.
I think I did read there are deleted scenes in one of them where you see a bruise on her arm where she's like, a guy did assault her when he found out what she was doing, but they chose to drop that from the film in the end. But yeah, you know what? I think we can sum this up with any film that makes anyone think about their past behaviour and their behaviour going forward. It's got to be sure to place as an instant classic in my book.
Yeah, this is without doubt, this film, above all other films, the must-watch film this year.
Of the year, yeah. That's why I feel it was a bit shortchanged at the Oscars. You know, Oscars films are always issues films. That's what they always get. That's why they always get nominated. But you couldn't have been more pertinent this year with Promising Young Women, I don't think.
Anyway, Promising Young Women, you've got to see it if you haven't seen it.
So after Promising Young Women, I think we need a little bit of a palate cleanser, if you will. Something that's a bit lighter, a bit more fun. And that film is Love and Monsters, which is directed by relative newcomer Michael Matthews, whose only previous credit was a South African Western called Five Fingers for Marseille. I mean, I want to see that film now, because a South African Western with a French title, that sounds interesting. So I'm going to try and find out where I can find that. So here are your plot spoilers ahead for Love and Monsters.
Spoiler alert! There's spoilers everywhere!
We learn in an intro that an asteroid is headed to Earth, but luckily the world's governments blow it up with missiles. Unfortunately, the chemical fallout causes all cold-blooded animals to mutate into large monsters that wipe out most of humanity very quickly. We meet our hero Joel, played by Dylan O'Brien, who's been surviving in an underground bunker called a colony with other survivors, and all the other survivors are romantically paired up, and Joel is the odd man out. And he also freezes whenever there's danger, he can't fight, and he's instead left as the colony's de facto chef. We see in a flashback that Joel was actually with his girlfriend Amy, Iron Fist's Jessica Henwick, when the chaos erupted and they were separated as their parents fled in different directions. Thankfully, due to an old radio, Joel finds that Amy has survived and is in another colony several days away. But with Joel's skill set, that is essentially a death sentence, and after another near miss during a monster attack, Joel decides, you know what, he's had enough is enough, and he's going to make the dangerous trek to be reunited with Amy. Everyone in the colony thinks he's going to die and tell him that to his face, but unperturbed, our hero Joel leaves the relative safety of the bunker and begins his trek. As Joel starts his trek, he is almost immediately eaten by a giant toad monster, but he is then saved by the film's true hero, Boy the dog. Boy then accompanies Joel on his journey, and once again, Joel falls into a monster pit and is saved by two survivors, Clyde Dutton and Minnow. They travel together for a little while and they teach Joe how to survive, and then they head for the mountains while Joe continues on towards the coast. With some actual skills now, Joel saves Boy from a giant centipede attack and finds a power source and a radio in an abandoned building and contacts Amy to let him know he's close by. She tells him to hurry up because they're being rescued right before the power dies. The next day, Joel is then attacked by a giant queen sand gobbler, and yet Joel manages to blow it up with a hand grenade, but he also gets some funky leeches on him that start making him freak out, and he promptly passes out seeing a vision of Amy. Except it's actually Amy, and he's made it to the camp. And he wakes up saved in Amy's camp full of really old people. And Joel quickly finds that Amy has moved on these past 7 years, and she's actually mourning for someone else who she's been with recently. Joel realises his mistake and decides to head home to his own colony, where it sounds like they are in imminent danger. Remember the people that Amy told him that were there to save him? Nope, they're a bunch of assholes on a yacht, and they want to feed him to a giant crab monster that they've imprisoned. Joel frees the crab monster, which in turn then attacks the yacht assholes. Joel saves the day, says goodbye to Amy and her survivors. He goes back to help his colony, and the film ends with him leading his colony into the mountains, headed for Clive and Minnow. So, David, thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was a really good film. It was a really good film. The effects were...
Oscar-nominated effects.
We've already touched upon it. Were outstanding. The dog I mean, that
cruelly
dog boy,
snubbed.
He's now everybody's favourite TV dog.
Movie dog.
Movie dog. Everybody's favourite movie dog.
Unless we get the spin-off show Boy on Disney Plus or Netflix, I'd still be okay with that.
Like the dog from The Artist. Nah, no one can. Like, everyone's gonna be on Boy now. Yeah, he was. Like you said, he was the standout. Like he's the one thing that you could take from that film was how good that dog was. The film was it was sort of a combination of.
It's a genre
monsters.
mash, wasn't it?
Yeah, like monsters from Garth Evans, and sort of like a Zombieland.
Yeah, because I mean,
way,
how many times have we seen a post-apocalyptic film in the last couple of years where it's all grim and we've seen it so much now with shows like The Walking Dead as well that you need to do something different to I mean, we don't, especially after the year everyone's had, we don't want to see films set in the future where everything's gone to shit and everyone's arseholes to each other and. It's the same thread in all these shows and movies that people are worse than the monsters. Yeah, we get it. In this one, okay, yeah, we have got some assholes at the end who are Australian assholes. Not that Australians are assholes. I quite like Australians. I had a very nice time there when I went to Sydney a little while back. We have to talk about the true hero of the film, Boy, who was cruelly snubbed at the Oscars this year with no Best Supporting Actor nomination. I mean, I think they should easily be a Dogscars set up with Boy as your first Best Dog Actor. I mean, that was one charismatic dog,
that's
man.
That's actually a thing, like a joking award ceremony somewhere that they're best animal acting.
When I put the hashtag Dogscars in, someone else had written it. So it definitely, someone else has done it. Bar the fact that the dog's awesome and has some of the best reaction shots of the dog, he actually is important to the plot. Like, when we first meet Boy, he saves Joel's life because he attacks and severs the tongue of a giant toad monster. Later on, he saves Joel from eating the poison berries. The dog has got a better and more rich backstory than most Hollywood films, right? Come on, we established that he's trying to find his owner and the red dress. That needs to be the sequel. If there's a sequel, man, it has to be Joel and Boy finding Boy's owner on the road. And then you've perfectly got for this type of film, it clearly has to be the romantic lead to go opposite Joel. Make it now, Hollywood. I want more Boy. I want to find out who the red dress belongs to.
I've just had a quick Google. There was something called the Patsy Award, Picture Animal Top Star of the Year.
And did Boy win it? And why didn't he?
It stopped running in 1976, and there's no more. Anyway, sorry.
That is the best random facts you've Googled during the podcast. The Porskers. Of course it is. You mispronounced it, didn't you?
No. The first one. I'm on a different one now.
So you've gone down a rabbit hole of animal awards in films now, haven't you?
Yeah. There are some really good performances.
Yeah, the None Beat Dog.
Like the horse in War Horse. I didn't even think of that.
The horse in War Horse. Could the horse in War Horse tell you that, no, don't eat those poison berries? No, it'd probably eat them and die. Sorry, fuck that horse.
The Capuchin from Indiana Jones?
Yeah, I'm a bit sus on that, seeing as they actually ate monkey brains in Indiana Jones. Obviously not real ones, but then again, it was the 80s.
That one did tell you that there were poison berries because it ate the poison berries itself and died.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway.
So, do you know what? I think this is the best one man and his dog film since I Am Legend. And it had a better ending. It had a happy ending. I was almost going to tweet, "We riot if something happens to the dog." Honestly,
yeah. If the dog, we could happily say that the dog does not die in this film.
Yeah.
And if it did,
well, it's a spoiler. We know.
Yeah. If the dog did die, you know what? I probably wouldn't watch it again.
Again, when you just stop watching it there and then,
you just
fuck this film. For me, I think the film works really because of the charismatic performance of the lead actor Dylan O'Brien, who I had never seen in anything before, because apparently he was in the Maze Runner films, which I just ignored because apparently they were just like another Hunger Games YA rip-off, post-apocalyptic thing, so I didn't bother with those. And then I think he was in the MTV Teen Wolf, but again, I hadn't seen him in anything until this. And do you know what? He's just a really affable everyman, and he's not your typical hero, which is what makes this film work. You know, that's what makes him likeable. He survives on pure luck, but as the film progresses, he slowly learns skills that he needs to survive. And the Joel at the start of the film is very different to the Joel we have at the end of the film. I mean, I loved as well how many times, if this film had been made a few years back, you know, he turns up, gets to his ex-girlfriend. Oh yeah, Joe, you saved me. He gets there, and she's like, dude, it's been 7 years. I met someone else, and that person's died, so no. And he's like, and again, even a few years back, Joel would have been a dick about this and had like there would have been scenes with him like being a dick about it before he eventually got over it. In this, he gets over it straight away. He's like, yeah, do you know what? That was a bit fucking stupid. It was 7 years ago. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, I'm going to go back. Okay, well, I've got all my cool new skills. I'm going to go and save my actual friends now. And yeah, it was good, man. I just like it portrays an upbeat version of an apocalypse, you know.
Yeah. I would like to know how many people will now die, though, because he was like, you know what, guys, just go out. It's fine. I could do it. That means anybody can.
All the other colonies just get wiped out.
Yeah.
That guy in colony, whatever number, told us. I tell you what I think makes the film original as well is that it's a rarity these days that you get a film with that kind of mid-level to low-level budget, but it blends comedy, drama, action really well with a clever story, good performances, and exceptional set pieces and monster SFX. You know, this is like a mini Hollywood blockbuster, really, isn't it? You know, in another year, this could be a massive hit.
I think it's one of those films that you're going to consistently come back to. Every like 2-3 years, like when you're just like, oh, what are you going to watch? Oh, let's watch this. Like, because it's one of those films that's just a good film that you're gonna want to watch again and again and again, even though you've seen it 5-6 times before. Like, how many times can you say that you've watched like for instance, I watched The Hangover last night. I can't even tell you how many times I've watched The Hangover.
Is it 11?
It's a good film. How many times have you watched The Hangover?
I would say 2 or 3.
Yeah, there you go. It's going to be like that. It's going to be like this film, Love and Monsters, will be like a film of that ilk where you're just going to consistently come back to it because it's a good, entertaining, fun film. 2
brilliant films this week. Do you know what? I give them both 5 stars. If we did star ratings, I've just decided we're doing star ratings. Both 5 stars. Both completely different films, and if you're going to watch them both, watch Promising Young Woman first, then watch Love and Monsters.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to watch 1 or 2, yeah, you'd watch Promising Young Woman, 100%.
So that's all the time we have for on this week's episode. Remember, if you have enjoyed the episode, go and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. If you didn't enjoy the episode, then we'll send round Ted Hastings and the wee donkey fella. See you next time.
The wee donkey fella.
It's a Line of Duty thing. Go watch it, David. It's the best show ever. And by the time this podcast airs, the 6th season will have ended. And we might know who H is. We might know who H is, David. That means nothing to you, but the rest of the world knows, David. Go on Twitter on a Sunday night. It's all Line of Duty. That's all you need to know. Go watch it. And we're out.
Cool.
We needed roads.